What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to break down the biggest details we have learned in the Hogwarts Legacy State of Play. So I kind of want to go piece by piece. We will go in order by what they said in the State of Play, and we'll talk about some of the biggest things that stand out to me. I have made a kind of a big deal of the things that were missing from the State of Play. I will do that video either tomorrow or Sunday, okay? We'll talk about the things that were not there that I still maybe hope to see, or maybe they forgot, or maybe it's not going to be in the game at all, but we will do that in the next video. So the first thing we get, obviously, is a little exposition of, Hogwarts and learning spells and whatnot, but the first main thing we learn about it is character creation. There is obviously character creation, and it seems pretty detailed from what they show. I think there'll be a fair amount of stuff that you're going to be able to do with the character. The next thing we see is that you will end up be sorted. Now, we don't know how you're going to be sorted. They left that part out, and maybe that's for a reason. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but you will be sorted into one of the 4 houses. You'll go to your dormitory, and then you can go out into your common room where you're going to obviously meet the rest of your classmates. The next big reveal is that the people that said this were ultimately right. They were proven right. You are a 5th-year student at Hogwarts, and that is a big part of this game because a lot of this game is you catching up to the current standards of your fellow classmates. So they did confirm you are a 5th-year student in this game. Next up, we get the talk about all of the classes. So they name drop 4, but they do say to name a few, which obviously is a pretty normal phrase you say when there's more than just those. So this is something that I do feel they're probably hiding some of the other classes you'll end up taking, but the 4 they name drop are Charms, Defense Against the Dark Arts, Herbology, and Potions. And they go through a little snippet of pretty much each, kind of what you would imagine doing in each, some cutscenes with the teachers, probably like your first day meeting you, some of the gameplay elements to it, and what they could do for you as a student, because they talk about, literally making potions, having plants and all that stuff. And as we've seen later on in the State of Play, those are things that you're going to be able to take with you and use in the field, when you're fighting. Next up is some of the exploration. So they talk about going around Hogwarts and just kind of experiencing what that is like. But they do name drop some of the stuff you're going to be able to do in terms of finding shortcuts, dungeons. There are like puzzles to solve that you're going to have to use magic for that are a little bit of like you have to think about them a little bit. So those are some of the more minute-to-minute things you can do as you are exploring Hogwarts. And obviously, by the way, there's details all around here, right? There's different teachers. There's, of course, paintings on the walls as you're exploring Hogwarts that have people just moving on them. So the attention to small details is obviously very much there. Then they talk about returning faces, people that we've seen before, but also that it's kind of purposely where you're not going to know a lot of the people in this. And now they actually do they drop this, I should say, as well on the PlayStation blog, which maybe we can make a separate video for entirely, but Dumbledore, in my opinion, still seems like a possibility, but seems like a very, very long shot because they kind of stress in this part of the State of Play, as well as the PlayStation blog, that the point is this is about you. This isn't even so much about the students around you or the companions you take on missions. This is your journey and your wizarding journey, right? That's the idea, not, to be kind of one-upped by somebody more famous. And they make a statement about that, right? So you see like Nearly Headless Nick mainly as like the main person you're going to recognize. Obviously there's a couple others, but that is like the main one, and that's probably because they're not going to do too much to upstage you, right? Whereas somebody like a Dumbledore would. But they also mentioned, by the way, in this next part that you're going to be taking part in almost side activities. I believe they say side curriculum. That's their specific wording to catch you up to other 5th years, and they show you kind of doing different small activities throughout the school grounds and throughout Hogwarts, right? So I would imagine that's more like side missions, but maybe that's like a training program, right, where you have to go through several things to, test out different spells, or however you'd probably imagine that. That is what this part is talking about. And then we get the biggest tease of the entire State of Play, in my opinion. We see this girl fly up there on her nice little broomstick, and she's on the Quidditch grounds because you see the poles of Quidditch right there, but they had never at any point in this mention or say the word Quidditch. You do fly the broomstick, which we'll get to, but they tease Quidditch right here, but we'll see if that actually, if anything comes from that. Then we get a little bit of the story background. So you're going to be accompanied throughout this game, or maybe obviously just maybe parts of it, by Professor Fig, right? Who is pretty skeptical of this goblin, revolution going on, or he's the one that's kind of into it, right? He's kind of knowledgeable of it. And that actually right there lies the main part of the game, or the main story of the game. So there's a goblin revolution, which we do kind of know background pieces of in the Wizarding World. So that is what seems to be the main plot of the story, or maybe it's something tied in as well to you, right? Because you hold this magical power that nobody really knows how to control, which is referenced later on in the State of Play, and it's very possible that the main goblin villain is going to be after you to control that power, which probably means you will also have choices if you want to align yourself with him or you don't. There is a side villain also that they mention, right, as they go on. I believe he's in Hogsmeade with some of his gang, and so that seems to be almost a side villain, or somebody I think that works with the goblins throughout it. Next up is the spell portion, which is actually a very long part of the State of Play, which I loved, and it shows a lot of gameplay. And now there's small details here too, but to focus on, I guess, the biggest things that were said, and I suppose also shown, is just the range of combat options that you're going to have. So they do say dozens of spells. I estimate you probably see anywhere between 8 to 12 spells being used throughout this entire thing. So I think we see actually a pretty fair amount of them, but they do say dozens, plural. So I'm expecting, at this point, if there's not 24 or more, I'm going to be pretty upset. No, I mean, I really do think there'll be at least 20, if not more, right? A lot of spells I think you'd probably keep hidden throughout this State of Play that you're not going to show us. But you see some of the familiar ones. You also see some ones that aren't used too often, but you see them throughout. But you also see the play style. They talk about how enemies are going to fight you different. They have attacks, they have defenses, and they also will literally attack you differently. Some of the magic users may attack you, directly head on, and some may also just work to stun you or to paralyze you while somebody else attacks you. Also, again, there's smaller details I would say throughout this. There seems to be almost I would say upgrades to your weapon. I noticed in one circumstance you use Incendio, right, which is the fire one, and the second time you use it, you almost create a mini fire wall that hits one of the goblins kind of on the side that maybe people didn't even see, but you're mainly attacking one guy. So it seems like spells maybe could have upgrades where they're not going to only be used to attack one person, they can be used to attack others. There's also numerous examples where they somebody attacks you, and you deflect it, and you use that person's spell to hit somebody else. They actually do that quite often in this State of Play. So it seems like the dynamics of the fighting are going to be pretty cool. I know people are kind of 50-50 on kind of the stiffness and a little bit of the more roboticness of the actual fighting, but I feel like it's going to be quite dynamic and quite up to you what spells you're going to use or how you're going to deal with something. I feel like that's going to be how this plays out. Then we have upgrades in terms of talent and ability, or talents and ability. And what's interesting here is they don't mention all of them. Again, I think they keep some hidden, but they do show them all, but they only go over, like with, a mouse, or what you'd imagine a mouse, they only go over a couple. So they talk about talents and abilities, and the ones they show are all 5, but they hover over Room of Requirement, Stealth, as well as Core. That's the middle one. So there's still the 2 on the left side. I assume, well, actually, I really don't even know the other 2. I feel like one that's going to be the 5 out of 14, that's probably literally actual spells. Also, by the way, if you look up above, character, inventory, talents, collections, challenges, map, owl posts, quests, and settings. So a lot of different stuff you could come up with there. And then, of course, they show a couple examples of, so say you go into stealth, right? Well, what's that going to look like in the actual game? Well, obviously, you'd want to use that ability of stealth so you can make yourself invisible, go around, stealth attack different enemies, and stuff like that. They also mention looting, that you can do that. There's also like side things throughout Hogwarts, collectibles. They show the character collect one of them. So there's collectibles, there's looting, and you can use looting as well as buying and crafting your own, I would suppose it would be like armor, stuff like that. Now, next up are basically items. Now, they call them, potions, herbology, and beasts. But these are basically things that you can create or get when you're in the classes, ideally, right? Because they show you in potions literally making a potion. You can grow your own plants, etc. Some of that's in the room of requirement as well, but I would assume you learn it for the first time in the actual class. And these are things you can take with you and use them in the field. So you can use potions, you can use plants to do different effects on different enemies. You can use the actual fantastic beasts on the other enemies. They also then actually, and I just noticed this upon rewatching, they name drop beasts class. So there's your 5th class. Maybe there's more than 5, but there's at least the 5th one right there where you actually are going to learn about fantastic beasts. That's right before the part where they talk about flying on broomsticks, and seems like there's going to be almost like obstacle courses, right, to learn how to fly a broom. And their reasoning that you should get good on a broomstick is so you can fly or travel to other areas of the world at a faster pace. So again, no mention of Quidditch, more like not even necessarily fast travel, more like travel in general. Again, there could be more reasons, but that's how they worded it. Then they talk about friendships. Now, this is something that I made sure to kind of point out. There's at no point any reference of romances, so like relationships in that way. Now, not saying that maybe you can't, but just for the state of play, it's just talking about friendships, and they show 3 of them. They show 3 of the 4 houses friends. So you could imagine, fill in the blank, there's a 4th one, right? Every house has one main friend. Now, maybe there's more. I kind of get the feeling it's going to be just that one. And these are going to be people that you can really learn about, right? They seem to have almost their own mission structure with it, maybe Mass Effect-like, right, where you can follow that through and complete kind of a story arc with those characters. But these are the ones you're going to be able to get the closest with, and these are also going to be the ones that you can take with you on missions that they show. But again, like I said in the earlier on this video, you can take them with you, but they really kind of stress they're still not that important. The game is still about you, but they can follow you and work with you in terms of, you know, battling and stuff like that. Then we get the Room of Requirement, which is kind of like, I wouldn't even call it a collectible room, but it's pretty much where you're going to be able to craft and grow everything. So this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. It seems like once you learn the potions from potion class, or once you learn the different, you know, plants you can create in herbology, you're going to be able to go to the Room of Requirement and basically plant them and grow them and craft them on your own, and it's going to be tied to like an in-game time structure, which is pretty interesting. Different games, Dragon Age has that feature in it as well. When you send people out and you have to wait a certain amount of time, that's what this seems to be. You can plant different things. You can tell the game, you know, I want to plant this potion or this thing, and you have to wait however long it tells you to. You go back, you pick it up, and that's now in your inventory. So I think that's a really, really cool dynamic and almost like a training room, and kind of, again, actually, or the Room of Requirement kind of giving you everything it believes that you need. And the final, I guess, aspect of this state of play, the final stretch of this, is pretty much everything you can do outside of everything we talked about, which is exploring outside of Hogwarts' walls. They mentioned Hogsmeade. Hogsmeade kind of sounds originally or initially as just like a shopping center, as a market, and I think for the most part it probably will be that, but they also made an effort to say, hey, there's also a group of dark witches and dark wizards that are around there as well. You can either hide from them or you're going to attack them. There's also dungeons you can go down to try to find different stuff, face different kinds of enemies. There's a lot to do when you're exploring just in general. The seasons will change. There's also just kind of huts and people that live on the outskirts of Hogwarts that you can go up to, learn their stories, and I believe they say like, I like help them with different like activities, help them with quests, which are side quests. So there's your side quests, helping different people out around there. Then at the end of that little montage, we get huge confirmation that Avada Kedavra is in this game, that you can go that dark. Now, I believe he does it to not a human. It almost looks like the ending, like it looks like kind of dust from what you see at the end product, but it kind of looks like one of those statues you saw earlier in the state of play. So I don't think in that example you use it on a human, but I imagine you will be able to use it on a human eventually. But there's the confirmation. You can get so evil as a 15, 16-year-old that you can be using Avada Kedavra on people. And then it has the finale where it just tells you, you know, be who you want to be, experience life, so on, so on. Holiday 2022. We talked about the Holiday 2022 in a video yesterday if you guys want to check that out. All right. those were the biggest things. Again, I'm sure there were smaller things, more detailed aspects. Again, kind of even going more in-depth in missions and using Avada Kedavra. There's plenty still to talk about in general, which I will be covering, you know, obviously for the next 9 or so months at the very least until this game comes out. So we'll do a video very, very shortly on what wasn't in the state of play, and then we'll start to break down the individual aspects of what we did see, okay? That's all coming over the next week or so. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all on the next video.